Well, looks like it's just a witching minute. Okay. I call the Yelm Planning Commission meeting to order today, August the 15th, 2022 at 4 p.m. Staff, could you do a roll call of members?
Commissioner Jerry Fugic.
Here.
Commissioner John Graver.
Here.
Commissioner Stephanie Dunn.
Here.
Commissioner Ann Mormond.
Here.
Commissioner Carlos Perez.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Howard.
Here.
Commissioner John Thompson.
John is in Spokane. He's supposed to be heading this way.
He's got the Corvette. He could be here soon.
Oh, he took that, I don't know what car, but he could have made it faster. If we could all stand. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll make one change here. The eagle's supposed to be facing out, not against the wall. Okay, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting? I would then entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. You've also, one of the things that we didn't have on there, but you have the agenda. Like to have a motion that we approve the agenda as printed.
I motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for today's City Planning Commission meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? None, hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. City communications, are there any city communications?
No.
Okay. City comments or public comments, I believe in your packet, you have a written comments by Mike Edwards. Did you everybody get a copy of that?
This was last time.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I have a question. Did Mike Edwards clarify what we need to do, or what, I mean, through the planning, what needs to be done?
Yeah, so we met with Mr. Edwards last week about the possibility of rezoning his property from C1 to R6. We let him know that staff is very opposed to the idea and suggested some alternative courses. C1 currently allows up to 36 residential units per acre, and he can combine that with commercial. So the potential is definitely there for some residential development, just not for R6. We have also talked to several members of City Council about the possibility of rezoning that parcel, and they're pretty opposed to it. The challenging thing about that parcel, commissioners, is that this is our last undeveloped piece of C1.
Okay.
And so we would like to actually see it developed into something more commercial, or at least mixed use with, commercial and residential components. But Mr. Edwards seems really intent on trying to do some kind of commercial with 6 units of density per acre. He really wants to see single family homes there, and we just said we're opposed to it as staff, and city council seems opposed to it too. So we've met with him, we've explained our position. So the ball is kind of in Mr. Edwards' court if he wants to try to apply for something, but the application would be rejected for not complying with the development code. That's where we are.
So what you're really saying is he needs to apply for that, not just talk.
You could potentially apply for some kind of amendment to the development code to allow single-family housing in the commercial zone, but we've been trying to get that out of the commercial zone so that we can focus more on having actual commercial there as well as mixed-use developments. So any change to allow density in commercial, we would recommend denial of and staff.
This is the last piece of commercial zone.
Yes.
C1.
C1, C2, I believe we have a couple of parcels. Miriam, Sarah, do we have any C2? I just know about C1.
Did we have something?
One of them's under the power.
Right, I was gonna say, actually, two of them are the.
But we don't have any C1, which is kind of designed to be our primary commercial zone, which supplies commercial needs for the city. C2 is more of a heavy commercial zone, so heavier uses like the movie theater. And C3 is designed to be our big box commercial zone. So for everything else that's more neighborhood scale, then C1 is it, and the Edwards property is our last. For now, as the city grows and expands, then we'll get more. But given that the city already has a lot of other places where it can do residential, R4, R6, R16, then we prefer to keep the commercial property open for commercial and mixed use.
London, I apologize that I was not here last time, but to help me understand better this particular piece of C1, is there a map available that we could show so I can see where it is?
Yeah, Miriam, can you pull those name up for us? This might take a couple minutes.
Okay, sorry.
I'm fully in agreement with you as well. We're really trying to encourage higher density and mixed use.
Or just commercial in commercial zone and not residential in the commercial zone.
I'll send you the link. Would it be easier if I email you the link? I'm sorry, I'm not the host. I can't share my screen.
Okay, no worries, Miriam.
So in effect, Mr. Chairman, the city council has overridden our previous.
Yeah, they had different group, yeah, and they had different groups that there are two people on the city council.
From what I understand, what London has said is that they've already talked over with the council.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, like I said, the other council, there's new people on it now.
But the new people rejected it too.
No,
Oh,
no,
they haven't?
no.
Oh. All right.
All right, so this property on Yelm Avenue, close to Killian. This is the property that we're talking about. Mr. Edwards is proposing either to rezone this entire thing from C1 to R6, or to amend the code to allow for a mixed use commercial single-family development, which would, according to him, would just end up being some commercial right here, and the rest would just be a single-family subdivision. So this is our, again, our last C1 property in Yelm, and we would like to see it develop for something else.
Are all three of those lots C1 or just the one along the road?
So everything that's pink right here is C1 right now.
Okay. What, I look at the one along the road, that makes sense of being C1. Because in business, location, location, location is everything. That's kind of off the beaten track of a way where we can have a win-win.
If we were to scope out from this, this is actually where the new plan development
Mhm.
empties into this. So it'd be it could emerge as a new town center, a new
Yeah. Yeah.
second town center with the number of people that go into the,
We just want to make sure we are preserving some land for future growth for commercial and not turn Yelm to a bedroom community. That's what all we're trying to do right now.
We would like Yelm to be fully self-sufficient with commercial.
Yeah.
And as we'll talk about in our presentation later, this helps to balance Yelm and make it a full community instead of a bedroom community like Miriam says.
Yeah.
So potentially with the mixed use development, Mr. Chair, potentially you could arrange most of the commercial right here and put the
Yeah.
apartments back here if the developer didn't want to do stacked
Yeah.
commercial residential, or this could be stacked residential commercial right here with this more of an apartment component back here as part of the development. So there are a couple of ways that we can do this. But just to rezone it to all residential, staff feels that would be a great loss.
Okay.
for our community.
and these ideas that I know there are several new townhomes that have gone into place. That require 36. R36 is what it requires to do the combined.
So there is no R36 zone. The 36 units per acre is solely for commercial developments as part of a mixed use development. The highest residential, solely residential zone that we have is 16 units per acre, R16. So, with townhomes or something like that, potentially it could be an option for a mixed use development, but it would just have to be very dense.
More likely it'd be like the properties that we've seen across from the post office, where they've got the commercial and the apartment residential.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which seems rather feasible to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think Mr. Edwards has talked about having potential buyers lined up. And so I think the sense of urgency is coming from him wanting to make a sale on the property. So
On the land or on the houses?
on the land. Yeah, there are no houses there right now.
He owns this land?
Yes.
Oh,
Where his family does.
sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any input? You deal in land, property, and all that things.
Well, here's the deal, it always works this way. You always have residential first, and then the amount of residential tells commercial how much it's going to grow.
Yeah.
I just know his aggravations because he's been sitting kind of on the outskirts,
Yeah.
waiting for somebody to buy something from them. And, you know, like I say, it's just been on the market. Eventually will it be worth? Yeah, it'll be great. But right now, I think you're right. You know, I don't think we can afford to, you know, put it all into residential. I just don't see that. Just where are people going to go? You know?
We've already, sorry, commissioners, just one thing to interject real quick. We've already lost half of our industrial land from the rezoning here, which was kind of put in place before me and my current team came in. So you'll remember late last year when that was approved.
Yeah.
So our industrial options for potential employers who want to come in there are really limited right now because people wanted to rezone to residential to sell a few lots, make a quick buck, and we've lost that land probably forever.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful about the kind of decisions that we make regarding our land use here in the next few years. And this is the challenging thing, because we want to be sensitive to the rights of private property owners who, you know, we live in the US, we live in a capitalist society. People, to a certain point, have the ability to do what they want with their land, but we have to balance that with, you know, the needs of the few versus the needs of the many, and deciding what's best for our little municipal society moving forward. So it's a tough balancing act. That's why they pay us as planners to try to figure out where that point is. And that's why you're here as commissioners to provide guidance and to make recommendations on that. But certainly our staff recommendation would be, we are about out of C1, and this is our best shot right now for some kind of mixed use development. The northern gateway to the city, you come in, there's a lot of you know, nice looking apartments there, a lot of nice looking commercial. So
What's the property on the other side of the
The
road?
medical center.
That's the old medical center, okay,
Center and up there.
and the junkyard.
Well,
Well, there's the other thing to think about is when somebody wants to buy it, they really, according to this, all they have to do is put in 11% finished commercial,
Yeah,
you know, and then the rest they can build out,
yeah,
you know, for apartments or whatever. They just have to reserve the land
yeah.
for the rest of the 22%.
they couldn't do R6.
without a rezone, certainly Redwoods could propose a rezone there, and you know, we could consider whether it's a rezone to R6, but staff would be an emphatic no on that.
Good. Bob, do you have any?
Shaded the pink areas, that particular one. What about the remaining pink areas? Are those already been?
Was below it, the ones on this side of the Yelm Highway.
Oh, they're all taken up.
Yeah, they're all taken. I mean, it's the medical center and the junkyard, I guess.
Yeah. Carlos, do you have any?
Just in urban development, I guess it's very important that you retain some commercial availability. And what kind of commercial availability are we trying to attract? I guess is part of my question. Keeping that as C1.
Absolutely. So C1 encompasses a wide variety of businesses. So we could be looking at banks, we could be looking at restaurants, we could be looking at gyms or salons or places like that. The blessing and the curse of our code is that it allows a wide variety of uses in each zone. So, but we're certainly, we're not looking at, junkyards or anything like that. Gas stations are also prohibited in C1. So we wouldn't be looking at a refueling station or anything like that. It would be more services designed for humans. For humans, so food service or health or finance or things like that.
So basically like a stop and rob would not be, but you know what, 7-Eleven. I'd have to have a little humor. So they couldn't put one of those in there.
Not with the fueling station, no.
No, without that.
Yeah, convenience stores without a fueling station, potentially, you know, kind of a
Okay.
neighborhood grocery or something like that, that could go in there. But a full-on gas station like the Shell that you see a little more
Yeah.
west, that would.
Like 7-Eleven, so, where they, okay.
Maybe we've got a veterinary hospital, we've got people.
Yeah, honestly, if you wanna know what might go in there, just look at what's already there.
Yeah.
I see more of a potential if stacked commercial residential goes in. I see more of a potential for restaurants on the ground floor, just because from personal observation, that tends to be a lot of what goes in there because there's an automatic consumer base from the stacked from the apartments right above. The easier it is to go out and eat somewhere, then the more you're going to frequent that place. So that would be what I anticipate we see there.
The retirement home structure, the main retirement home in this area is there. Yeah. And so having this stacked apartment with commercial underneath. I think that over 55 was old, but now I don't think that anymore. But over 55.
I think when we originally looked at it, we were looking at for this area where it wasn't on, it was off the beaten track, but this makes sense right there to keep that as commercial as far as I could see, because it's right on the main drag. It's right
on the main track, absolutely. And certainly you could have some kind of supporting office park back here, something like that. Employers coming in to have workforce from the apartments that are along the main road. People can just walk to work or something like that. So any other questions about this?
One last question. What did we rezone this property over here along the railroad tracks and all that?
That was, I believe that got passed October of 21. I think Planning Commission saw that in July of 2021.
Yeah.
And then council approved it in October.
But what is it rezoned to?
That is our six, yeah.
That's all gonna be homes, like subdivided neighborhoods.
Well, there's
at some
certain
point.
points that you can't build on.
Well, the yellow on the between Railway Road.
But most of those lots will be subdivided.
Narrows down where North Pacific and Railway go into first. That's a low area. That's
A floodplain.
Drainage.
that.
Oh, yeah, there is a marshy.
Little bar rectangle there, is that basically the property for Rosemont?
Are you talking about this one right here?
Right there.
Any other questions before we move on? We do have a presentation that we're excited to share with you today. So any other questions about that?
Wonder, do we need to basically say we endorse the city's plan or we endorse like Edward's plan?
It's not, so the public comment doesn't require any action,
Okay,
but certainly the commissioners can discuss it, whether they're in favor or not, and but no motion is required.
okay.
Oh, is he?
I can say that I support what the staff has come up with.
Right.
Commissioners, it looks like Mr. Edwards is here virtually on the computer. So we're happy to give him an opportunity to speak. But nothing decided today or anything like that. So
Hello, good afternoon there, commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hey, loud and clear. Thank you very much for your conversation. I only have a few minutes with you because of your time limit, but I do have one paper in front of you, I think that was sent in prior to the meeting and giving you written comments for public. And then I have another one that came in to the staff at about 2 this afternoon that you'll be able to pick up from them and enter. Both of them are applicable to our conversation today. I'll just quickly run through this most recent memo that they've received in the office there today, but I request that that be sent to you in its entirety so you have it in your folder and in your minutes. The issue that we're dealing with in zoning here has to do with what you passed last year, allowing a residential density of 32 dwelling units per acre in the commercial zone properties. And that was a action that you took and apparently the city council had passed. And that's the one that's really concerning for the commission, I think, and I encourage you to take a look at it. My memo to you today covers it in detail, but one thing about it is we had a hard time getting a hold of it because it has never been published. And as of August, this provision was apparently not been adopted into city codes and has not been on public notice to anybody. It hasn't been given owner notification or advertising or hearings or publication in codified form. So it was difficult for us to get a hold of it. And that's why my comments are a little bit late on that passage that you made for a residential presence in C1 zoning that you did last year. Now, the problem with it is that it was for 32 dwelling units per acre, and that is a very high density, and your plan currently does not allow for lesser utilization of the properties, for instance, R6 or R16. And as such, it's in a 32 dwelling capacity, and that simply will not go in the market at 32. So our residential developments throughout Thurston County and certainly in Yelm has been in the form of R6 and in the apartments of R16. And those two are important ways for the city to grow. But the current proposal for the growth with 35 units required in the C1 without any reduction is not, with it not being allowed, including the R6 single family residence or the R16 apartments, it causes a stifling of the growth of the city of Yelm, given the markets that we have today. And what it does when you do that is you reduce the slowing of residential growth within the city by not allowing residential moderate density. So again, this impacts negatively the ability for our commercial neighborhood retail growth opportunities, which is totally dependent on the number of rooftops, both current and in the future. Now, currently, Yelm has a surplus of commercially zoned properties given the historic growth rate and type of new retail community businesses in the last years. Yelm has not had a big box store enter since Walmart. The original land use planning and allotments for commercial use of 10 to 15 years ago applied largely to opportunities surrounding the big box retail stores such as Home Depot, Sears, Thriftway, and so on. The kind of use for commercial has now changed dramatically since that time and directed more to neighborhood retail services and restaurants with drive-ups. Land planners attempt to locate these services as much as possible dispersed throughout the city or near residential areas. So we have foot traffic. So with the changes of demographics and today's e-commerce dictating where businesses now locate, it's important for Yelm to provide flexibility with its current surplus of commercial zones to incorporate moderate density retail or residential, along with community service commercial business. Now, the 32 unit passed last year, when it's lacking flexibility to adjust to a lesser density, does not meet R6 or R16 market needs of today. We have moderate density preference in housing evidenced by the residential products currently underway within Yelm and elsewhere within Thurston County. The R232 density is not a residential product sought by current markets and is impractical in providing price attractive and affordable housing products with 3- and 4-story buildings requiring expensive elevators, alarms, fire controls, and such with these building codes. So right now I would present to you that the problem is greater than the quest that I have before you for a rezone. What we now find out, you have a mechanism in place for rezone in C1, C2 properties, but that mechanism is very restrictive. It does not meet the market for housing, does not provide for any kind of flexibility to get the product that's available in the market placed in Yelm. So when we do that, when we restrict that down, we don't get a chance to make Yelm grow like we've all planned for. That entire west side annexation was covered by a $10 million LID improvement to cover sewer, water, roads, and such. And it's not being anywhere near fully utilized, nor will it be under that provision that you passed last year. So there's an adjustment there. Now, I would be happy to discuss any of it further with you, but I know I'm on a limited time. I'd be happy to answer questions. I'd be happy to answer further on an agenda item in the future if you wish. But it is seriously flawed at the 32 dwelling units per acre provision that was stuck into the commercial properties. And it could be a good mechanism were it to allow for downward usage in residential in those areas to meet the markets that we're dealing with. So it could be a very valuable tool, but right now it's a severe impediment. And when you impede it like that, you're really shortchanging the city of Yelm in its growth. Just after the time when we finally obtained our water rights and ERUs sufficient to build Yelm, as we've all planned for since 1984, we finally have that capability, and we've got the ERUs that are necessary to do the growth of the city, and where the utilization of that $10 million can be applied in growth of Yelm is now stymied. And what that does, it does not give you any economies of scale that you're facing today with your utility billings. I mean, you must get complaints by the dozens all the time on the utility bills and their level. And the reason for it is you have very expensive plants, water plants, sewer plants, lines, and the likes, and they all have to be paid for by a fewer number of residents than is possible if we can make the city grow. Also, if we can be conducive in putting residential in place, we're more apt to get our commercial build up along the way. And that will not be in the big box stores. That will be very similar to our project there at Yelm Avenue and Killian Road, where you see the Olympia Federal Bank and the medical clinic that we put there. So, and for instance, the other is Rosemont was another one, and the vet clinic being another one. So those are the kinds of opportunities that we're missing out. So the picture is bigger than a request for Edwards, me, in rezone, although I do want to get a rezone approval. But it's more important that you as a building committee and commission, in my opinion, is to understand what this provision does, that it does not serve Yelm in the best interest. It could serve Yelm in a very best and useful way. And I encourage you to take a look at that paper that I got. The staff has it in hand. They can supply it to you. I'd like it entered into your minutes if you would. And please do give it some consideration. I'm not the total expert on community planning, but I've had a lot of community planning under my belt. I'm willing to work with you even besides Zoom. I can make a trip out. We can all talk a little bit more. It's so important with your committee that you be accurate on this, that you give the city the best advantage you can in planning. And there is an opportunity to do that. But the current method of doing it in 32 density in the existing commercial is not the way to go. And it's not currently under approval in any event because it's skipped all of the approval levels of owner comments and such. So anyway, I'll not overstay myself, run out my welcome. But again, I've worked so long with Yelm and the community, and I want to see it succeed. Obviously, I've got financial reasons, but I also have family pride reasons to see that Yelm does its very best. And we are on the precipice of a very good opportunity in the next few years to get a growth in Yelm that we've never had before. And that soon relates to taxation revenue. And when you have taxation revenue, you can afford the amenities that the city likes to enjoy for its citizens, and has it done a very good job in that order in the last years. So I'm going to cut my comments before somebody gets nervous about time. And if you'd like me to address any of this further, please quiz me now or later. Either way, I'll be happy to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards, for your comments. We have your written letter that we have looked at, all read over. So thank you very much.
Yeah, there was one that was probably given to you. The staff is yet not apparently given you this afternoon's for public comment. And that's the one I'd like to enter into your record and have you take a few minutes to study.
Okay, thank you very much.
If not now, later. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I know what the consensus is of the planning commission right now, but if we need to bring that, should we give you the consensus? Consensus is to keep it as is with no change to the zoning. Anybody else have any other opinion on that?
I heard something from Mr. Edwards that seemed to be a bit of a confusion. That is, the C1 is not the commercial zone for big box.
Right.
And it is the commercial zone for things like the medical center and Rosemont,
right,
and the veterinary hospital. So that was just something that I've been listening that occurred to me. Well, we're not trying to move big box into that section of town.
Well, I have just a comment about the presentation about Mr. Edwards' discussion. I have a hearing problem, but I find it very difficult to understand what he was trying to get across and what he was trying to say. And I don't know if it was the speaker that, the microphone that he was using, or the speakers here, or what. and I've tried that apparatus, that doesn't,
When I,
but I'll try it again
Yeah,
some other
sorry.
time. Oh, thank you. But so unfortunately, I don't have all of the information that, other than what I've read here in the comments from Mr. Edwards. But I'm in agreement for now anyway, that we should maintain the zoning as it is. Especially, we're not talking about big boxes, stuff, and we're not talking about that kind of stuff. And I would like to see Yelm continue to grow. And we do need, some kind of service, commercial stuff to come in, to serve the people that are here, the community. I mean, we're growing, by leaps and bounds.
Right. Okay, I believe our next one was we're going to have some staff training, right?
We are, and I am very excited for this today. So how we're going to do this is Miriam is going to begin, and each of us will introduce ourselves. You know most of us already, but we'll each introduce ourselves. And Miriam is going to talk a little bit about why we plan and the comprehensive plan for the city and things like that. Then Sarah is going to talk more about current planning and kind of the day-to-day things that we do as planners. And then I will end up with just talking about some of the long-range planning projects that we have as a city right now. And answer any questions, any remaining questions. We're all happy to answer questions during our presentations as we go along. Each person is going to take about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less if we go through. But anyway, without further ado, Miriam.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Today, I want to kind of go over what is planning, why we do planning, and how it's going to benefit our community, and basically what we do here in Yelm as the planning team. Oh, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Miriam. I'm the associate planner. So why planning is important? Planning is important because it protects the good things about our community. It protects our natural resources. It protects our historical buildings. We also can get public input about what they want to see for the future of Yelm. We basically have like this every time like we develop a plan, we invite public to come and speak. We have lots of workshops, lots of meetings. We get public input and we use that to create a plan for them. Establish a vision for the future of Yelm with the help of public and the Planning Commission. We identify threats, opportunities, weaknesses, strengths of our community. And the planning helps to establish our objectives and goals. And it will be like more like a long-term goal, short-term goals, and in general, we are trying to build a sense of community because we are here to serve public. We want to do good for people. That's our goal as a team. We are the planning team. Next slide, please. So the Yelm comprehensive plan establishes the vision for the city of Yelm, ongoing and future development of the community over the next 20 to 25 years. The city of Yelm participates in comprehensive planning under the provisions of Growth Management Act. I'm going to explain what is Growth Management Act, which was adopted in 1990, and it's basically like a statewide planning framework to reduce urban sprawl, manage threats to the quality of life in Washington, require local planning guided by state law, and it's regionally enforced. Next slide, please. So here I put together like 14 goals of Growth Management Act. It encourages compact urban growth, reduce urban sprawl, encourages coordinated multimodal transportation, plan for and accommodate housing affordable to all economic segments, encourage economic development, protect property rights, predictable permitting, maintain natural resource industries, retain open space, enhance recreation, protect the environment, encourage citizen participation, ensure availability of public facilities and services, encourage historic preservation, and manage shoreline development, which in Yelm, like we follow the first 13, but because we don't really have shoreline, like we don't really follow the last one. Next slide, please. So here you can see a map of all the counties in Washington state. The green ones are the counties that are fully planning under Gross Management Act. Thurston County, as you see, basically all the counties around Puget Sound are fully planning under GMA. We have 10 counties in blue, you can see them. It's optional for them if they want to follow GMA goals or not. And then 11 counties subject to critical areas and natural resources land requirements only. Next slide, please. So basically, fully planning counties must work with cities to designate existing and future urban growth areas. Next slide, please. And that's why Yelm, with the help of Thurston County, they put together a joint comprehensive plan, which was adopted back in February 2017. The plan was developed based on comments and ideas that were received from public stakeholders, city boards and commissions, the planning commission, along with applicable goals from the Sustainable Thurston Development Plan for Thurston region and the JBLM Joint Land Use Study. The purpose of the joint plan is to identify how development is to occur over the next 20 to 25 years for the city and for the county area within the UGA, which will eventually be served by City of Yelm public facilities and utilities. The plan is intended to apply to the entire UGA jurisdiction. In the plan will be implemented basically the part that is like within city limits. City enforces that part of the plan, and the part that is in Thurston County enforces that section. Next slide, please. So this comprehensive plan is organized by elements. There is, I believe, like we have 8 or 9 elements in our comprehensive plan, which 5 of them are required by state law. And they all have like objectives, general goals, policies, and how to achieve these goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. The maps, goals, and policies provide the basis for the adoption of regulations, which is or development regulations or Chapter 810, or what we use basically to approve permits for development. The comprehensive plan must be updated every 8 years to review population progress, the effectiveness of the existing plan, and the need for change. City of Yelm must update the comprehensive plan by June 30th, 2025, and we plan on starting the process next year. Next slide, please. So what does the comprehensive plan include? How do we get this data? We did a transportation study. We used the Yelm transportation plan, Yelm water system plan, Yelm general sewer plan, Yelm parks and recreation plan, and I believe we're in the process of adopting a housing action plan too, or putting together a housing action plan, which would help with the housing element of the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, we have 9 elements. The first 5 are required by state law. We have to have them. And the other 4 is like Yelm wanted to add like additional elements to the comprehensive plan. The land use includes a land use map showing where and at what density future growth will be accommodated. That's why it's important, like when we have a land use map, a zoning map, we shouldn't just go and rezone things. There were lots of studies done. We did population study, we did housing study, we did economic development study, transportation study, utilities, infrastructure, all that. Based on that, this land use map was generated. And if we basically go and just rezone things without like proper study, we're gonna hurt our community. And we are gonna fail as a planning team. The housing element of it must inventory existing housing supply. Basically, it has to include like what we have right now. Do we have single family, like multifamily? What do we need? What do we need for the future growth of Yelm? And we basically have to include all that in the housing element of the comprehensive plan. Capital facilities element must include an inventory of capital infrastructure such as parks or water and wastewater system to understand current needs and future demands with the growth that you're going to have. I believe we are projected to grow up to 20,000 by 2040. That's it. Okay. So we have to make sure like we have all this basically like information, we have all the data in it. And the utilities element, it basically considers the infrastructure needed to provide electricity, natural gas, and like telecommunication and all that. And the transportation element, it must inventory existing transportation network and identify needed improvements and those that will arise with future growth. Next slide, please. So I put together this slide just to show you like what we have in the comprehensive plan, like how we start. There is a vision, there is one like objective. Each element has few objectives. The 9 elements we just went over, they all have few objectives, several goals to achieve each objective, and several policies. So this is one example. This is for the land use element of it. So the objective of the land use chapter is to establish Yelm as an urban center which provides for a wide variety of goods and services for Yelm service area, jobs for its residents and the wider community, and a variety of housing types and style for all of its residents in an efficient and sustainable fashion while preserving Yelm's history. The goal: encourage diverse residential growth. Policy: adopt development regulations that encourages mixed-use subdivisions. So what we do as a planning team, we try to put together, that's actually London's part, to make sure that like we have all the regulations we need and development regulation or chapter 18 zoning code, that so we can achieve all these goals that we have in the comprehensive plan. And as you know, we just proposed, like, I mean, London again did all the work. We just proposed to basically for all the commercials that we have, commercial zones we have in Yelm, we decided to remove single family, which we have it all over the town, and instead have mixed use. We want to have more like multifamily for those that they need it. Not everybody can afford single family. Next slide, please. So this is just like an overview of what I just described. Again, the first big picture is we have to follow state law, the Forest Management Act. We have to follow state law. And then the next is community vision, what people want for Yelm. And after we have the vision, this is our part, planners part, that we put together objectives, goals, and policies to achieve that vision. And that's more like long range planning, which London works on that. And next is implementation strategies, which is development regulations, chapter 10 of the city code, which again, like London does all the work for updating it, modifying it. And me and Sarah, we use that code to basically enforce that code. We use that to either allow the project to happen or deny it. So, and any questions? That was end of my presentation. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
On the one slide where you're talking about objectives and goals and stuff,
Right.
you said that Yelm is going to be the urban center. Establish Yelm as an urban center. I'm just wondering the center of the region, like where people from Roy and Rainier are coming, or this?
Well, it would be from the UGA area, like Yelm and like all the communities around us. That's how. Yeah.
Walmart actually attracts people from Eatonville.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about though, is
It's a
making it urban for people outside of Yelm. to
Right, like
come.
smaller communities that they can come and to Yelm for like, if they want to use Walmart.
Sure,
Like, Safeway, all that.
okay.
And a lot
Or,
of,
you know, work here.
a lot of the county, there's a lot of people that live on
Right, there's lots of.
that, rather than driving all the way to Lacey or to someplace else to have business there.
What, do we have hard copies of the latest comprehensive plan?
Oh, you do have.
So the last one I have is 2007, so that's an old. That was a long time
And
ago.
some of us have the newer ones because we did them, but
Yeah,
we
so,
need to get those to people.
We have them online,
yeah,
city
well,
website.
I'll just wait.
There you go.
But I don't know, I mean, I need approval like from my bosses. If we can print one copy of general or comprehensive plan for all the planning commission.
Well, I've got, but
I would like to.
Our comprehensive plan is not to kill a bunch of trees. We can print you out stuff. No, so we're about to go through a big update, so you'll probably get some, I would imagine, some baseline stuff. That'll be kind of where you'll go from. So I would hold off on a full comprehensive.
Yeah,
plan.
I was just, because you're gonna do it in 23, so,
Yeah, so you'll get a bunch of printouts of different things.
yeah, I'll just wait.
You'll be chairman. They, I buy boxes of paper, but I go through a lot of ink if I start printing the
Yeah,
whole thing,
exactly.
like a ream.
And I'm on a fixed income.
Yeah, we definitely can print some copy.
Well, let's just wait. I'll wait till we get to later versions. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Sarah. I'm the assistant planner. Some of you already know me. Hi. So I'm doing current range planning today. So let's get started. So what is current range planning? Current range planning ensures that projects are consistent with applicable development, construction, and design standards of the UDC. So how do we accomplish this? We look at neighborhood compatibility and we try to mitigate those impacts like traffic impacts, environmental impacts to keep our neighborhoods healthy, safe, and running pretty smoothly. Go on to the next slide, please. So how do we do this? Kind of like Miriam had mentioned, we take into account the Yelm Municipal Code a lot, which is chapter 18. It's kind of like my little playground at my computer all day, you know. And then we look at the Yelm's comprehensive plan, which we had also just mentioned, our design guidelines, and our development guidelines. So design guidelines will just show us like, you know, kind of like beautification stuff, and development is, for example, like parking spaces, how far away each parking space needs to be, ADA stuff. So it keeps, again, that city running smoothly. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide too. So to do these, we actually have to process permits. And this is like what you hear a lot of people get upset about. No one wants to spend time and money to do their dream of opening up their hair salon, you know, but sometimes we sadly have to, again, because we have to go through our process. So ministerial is our easiest form. That's why I get a little smiley face there. You know, it's not that bad. It sounds pretty intimidating. So our first one that we like to look at is a boundary line adjustment. This doesn't create new lots. This just moves a line. Parcel stays the same. Nothing changes really, just that line's moving over. Ministerial site plan review. So this is an interesting one. This can affect multiple different types of people. This is one we see a lot of the times if it's a business owner, maybe adding a tenant or something. So usually you get this with like expansions, houses that are being developed between 2 and 9 houses, addition of a tenant, use of the existing building without enough parking, and 25% or less of an expansion of the original building's footprint. So you'll usually see like a ministerial site plan review be like someone's first permit if they're opening up a business. Usually that's like their first business. Home occupations is kind of self-explanatory. If someone's working from home and they have a business license, they would need that home occupation from us. Mobile food vending, we have a couple of these around that have some amazing food. And then our final subdivisions, this is like our larger scale subdivisions. When they're ready to record, they like to go ahead and submit those underneath our ministerial, and that ensures that our staff gets paid timely, you know, for what they're doing. This actually ministerials, oh, you're good. Ministerials don't actually have to go through a NOA phase, just FYI, they actually don't need an application. So if you're like, oh, hey, Jimmy down the road is developing out his hair salon, he might not have to do, you know, an NOA, which is a notice of application to the newspaper. He might not have to by state law. So anyways, thank you, Savannah. Administrative is our next one. This is the one that we actually see the most actually in our department. So the one we see a lot is administrative site plan review. And you see this with new buildings, especially commercial or industrials, new residential buildings of 10 or more dwelling units, and expansions greater than 25% or more of the original building footprint. So we see this one a lot, and it's probably the one I've done, I'd say like 70% of the permits since I've started here. Short subdivisions are divisions of land into 9 or fewer units. We've gotten subdivisions for one parcel. We've gotten divisions for 9 parcels. It just varies whatever they want to do, you know. Administrative subdivisions. So those are kind of the bigger ones. That's a division of land between 10 and 24 units. So it's a little bit larger. Subdivision alterations or amendments. This is kind of an interesting one. So this is when a subdivision is developed and then so many years later, like let's say between 1 and 5 years later, they would like to amend something in it, or even a binding site plan, they'd like to amend it. That's when this would kick in. If it goes past so many years, they don't have to do an amendment. It would just then be another subdivision. And an administrative variance, I have not done one of these yet. I have it on my cheat sheet though. When the requested front, side, or rear setback is greater than 85% of the required setback is an administrative variance. So all of these are, they do require an NOA, which is that notice of application. They do not require a public hearing though, unless there is some form of reason, maybe they're violating something in SEPA, or like Department of Ecology has something to say, or maybe even Department of Transportation, which we have seen if it's based off of like a state highway, will get some big comments that they would like to see to go to hearing potentially, but usually not too often. Sometimes if you see big signs that say, hey, this is going to happen here, with the administrative subdivisions, those can trigger the public hearings if there are comments, because it's a little bit of a bigger project. So our last one is quasi judicial. This is the one that is the big one. You know, so these are preliminary subdivisions, which is the division of land into 24 or 25 or more lots, special uses. So a lot of the times you'll see like churches under here, nursing homes, care facilities. Binding site plan is our next one. So that's a division of land in commercial or industrial pads. The medical center that we were talking about earlier, that's actually a binding site plan. So that's why you have some empty little lots in there that's ready to go for whenever anyone's ready to build. Planned residential developments, that's vary from the development regulations of the zoning district. This can also help provide a bonus density to certain aspects. So like, let's say low residential, moderate, and high residential, this can like provide 15, 20, 25% bonus densities. Mixed use developments, we were just talking about those earlier as well. Actually with the C1. So with mixed uses, you can do commercial with your apartments. The only thing I know that we asked that had changed is that we do 66.6% minimum of apartments, which would be that residential, and then not minimum, sorry, maximum, and then a max or minimum of 30% commercial, and that commercial needs to be built out at that same time, like the pads need to be built out at the same time the residential is ready. Our next one is variances. They waived the design standards of the Unified Development Codes. We have not had to do that one yet, as I've been here for like a year, so I'm sure my day is coming on that one. And critical area exemptions. So that's another interesting one because all of Yelm is actually a critical area because it's an aquifer recharge area. So we haven't had one of those yet either. But I'm more inclined to probably see those with like a wetland or maybe like a habitat or a flood area. But yeah, it's just if there is a flood area, you can apply for that exemption. So all of these with the quasi judicial, they actually have to go through public hearing, and you guys are pretty familiar with public hearings, right? 'Cause you can do them here. So they have to go through public hearing, NOA, whole thing. You know, it takes a lot longer than just a regular ministerial. So whenever anyone's like, oh, ministerial, I'm like, oh, trust me, it can be way worse, Jimmy. You know, so how do we accomplish all of these? So these are all accomplished by the, can you go back a couple slides? One more. Right here. So every single time we look through any of these to do even just a binding site plan or just a basic ministerial, we have to go through all of chapter 18 and kind of check a couple boxes. You know, what does this entail? You know, is it on the corner? You know, do we have to follow specific design guidelines for that corner lot, or you know, anything like that? I'm sure some of you guys are pretty familiar with chapter 18 as well. Like I said, it's kind of like our little playground in there. So questions, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah.
Under the administrative, could you pull that slide up? Administrative. Could you give me some examples of subdivision alterations or amendments? What kind of amendments?
Yeah, so like, let's say, we'll use the medical plaza again. So like, let's say it's 4 years after this was done, after it was recorded, and they would like to make a change to it, then that would be considered an amendment. So an amendment wouldn't have to go to public hearing, but it would allow for that notice. What would end up happening is we would have to take that old binding site plan and they'd have to do their amendments, their stormwater and everything would still apply, but they would have to re-record with the county for that amendment and have a seal from the city clerk stating that, yes, this was amended.
So they want to add a floor or they want to extend the building?
So because actually when you do an amendment for it's a binding site plan, the building pad's already built out. So you're actually changing the whole site plan, which could affect the stormwater. And again, we are a critical area because we're an aquifer recharge area. So if you do change like a building pad, that could actually create more runoff, which could then lead into that aquifer area. So that does have to be properly recorded. And also Thurston County does require for us to keep that recorded as well. And it's also in our own benefit too. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, everyone. Well, I will bring us home for the end of the presentation. So as most of you know, my name is London Hawes. I'm the Planning and Building Manager for City of Yelm. And I grew up in Oregon. So I'm a child of the Northwest and really love it here. And have been working here about a year. So today I want to talk about some current long-range planning projects that we have in the city. And I am responsible for heading up all of these. So Miriam talked a little bit about, she and Sarah handle the current planning for the city. My responsibilities besides managing my team include managing all of the long-range planning projects that we have for the city. So it keeps me busy. And so we'll talk a little bit about these now. So next slide, Savannah, thank you. All right, first of all is the housing action plan. So last year we got $75,000 for the creation of a housing action plan. What this would do is help us identify housing needs in the city and ways to alleviate those needs. So we have a consultant that we have selected. They have signed the public services agreement, and we are having our first kickoff meeting with them tomorrow afternoon. So we're anticipating to complete this in the middle of 2023. And so it should go pretty quickly. And by next year, we'll be able to present it to you as a commission and just go over with you the different housing needs that Yelm has. Next slide, please, Emma. All right, we talked about this earlier in the year, so a lot of you know about this, but we have received a several $100,000 grant to fund the creation of a habitat conservation plan. So this is designed not only to protect endangered species within Yelm, but also to streamline the development process for people whose lands are on potential endangered species habitat. If we can show with our HCP that all the endangered species have a place within Yelm that's never going to be disturbed, then that makes it a lot easier for people to develop on potential endangered species habitat. So those are the two reasons why we have this. We have a consultant, Confluence Environmental, who is currently assisting us with this. We've had a couple of meetings with them. They're going along really well with the project. I don't have an ETA on when this is going to be finished. Thurston County, they started theirs back in 2014 or 2015, and it just got approved. The draft did. So it's not a quick process. However, an advantage that we have is that Confluence also did the HCP for Thurston County. So we're kind of like ripping off a lot of their habitat conservation plan and just using it as our own. So we're anticipating that this process will take about 2 years to generate a draft instead of 6 or 7. Next slide, please, Savannah. Yes.
One of the things you want to find is an area that could be considered a habitat area that won't be disturbed, which kind of sounds to me like it would be a vacant land situation.
Potentially,
City doesn't have this property, do they?
which property?
The set aside piece of property. We don't have anything that big, right?
No.
So it would be somewhere possibly outside the city.
It could potentially, so remember we have that master plan community area to the southwest. Potentially some of that could become, potentially there's some area in our urban growth boundaries that could become part of it. So stuff that isn't part of the city right now, but is slated to be through annexation at some point in the future. So we have a couple of different possibilities for it. I don't have a good, I don't have an idea of where that could be right now. That's something that we will figure out with our consultant, but we do have a couple of options. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, next slide, Savannah. All right, the Education and Innovation Center. So we got an $800,000 grant to develop an Education and Innovation Center. The city is matching $400,000 of this, so we have $1.2 million budgeted for this. This would be a place where the Yelm Museum currently stands. That building is not structurally sound. It's having some troubles. So what the city at this point is looking to do is to redevelop the property with a 3-story Education and Innovation Center building. This would feature the Yelm Library as a tenant. It would feature South Puget Sound Community College as a tenant. And we would also work the current Yelm Museum exhibits into the building as kind of a permanent exhibit installed at various places in the building, walls, staircases, places like that, so that people can actually engage more with Yelm's history, because the museum is not getting a lot of usage right now at all. In fact, I'm not sure it's getting any usage.
Only open on Saturdays.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of that history isn't being shown. And so we really feel like this is a great opportunity, not only to get the library a new, more permanent location, as well as bring the community college here, but also help people experience Yelm's rich history as well. So the building would be 35 to 40,000 square feet with the mock-ups that we're seeing. I can't share those yet, but they do look pretty cool. I like them. And they are an innovative design that we think would really complement the city. Commissioner Graver, please.
Education Innovative Center to do think tank. I mean, I'm not sure what.
Sure. So are you asking specifically about the innovation part?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, part of it is a center for innovation, right? Education innovation.
Absolutely. So the education part is clear, I hope. And education, of course, breeds innovation. So what this building also has is a lot of different meeting rooms and classrooms and things like that, where it could be kind of a community hub. We already do have a community center in Yelm, but it's very big and spacious. It's not great for more personalized classes of 10 to 15 people. So that space can, it's designed, about half the second floor and most of the third floor is designed to be flexible, to be used for whatever. That space can be reserved. So potentially it could be for some think tank kind of things, or it could be for business startups or just groups like that. So the education part is very clear. The innovation part, we're still working out a little bit, but it's designed to be able to grow and be flexible and to kind of be Yelm's little flower that grows into something really great. So does that help to answer a little bit more? It is a little bit amorphous. We don't have it pinned down as much as the library and the community college, but we are hoping that this can be some kind of group startup business incubator, something like that. Commissioner Dunn, please.
So are we talking about office space that would be free for the public to go in and use if it's available?
It would be reservable by members of the public, yes. So
is it part of the library or is it going to be like its own?
it'll be part of the same building, but not part of the library space itself.
Okay.
So the library with the mock-ups that we're seeing would be on the first floor. And the community college space would be a mix of first and second. And then the meeting rooms, the flex space, that would be about half the second floor and all of the third floor. But it would be reserved by the public.
Question, are you also doing the planning around this for possibly an administrator or someone that's going to be responsible for the building after it's there?
That is completely above my pay grade. That's probably more of a city council, city administrator, maybe a big manager level discussion. But have we discussed that, Cody?
I'm just gonna sit there the other 5 hours of my day, I guess, so. No, that is something we're discussing about who will man it, what kind of things. That's something we will be looking at as we get closer to developing what this space will be.
Same kind of thing that we have dealt with the community center thing. We would need somebody to oversee it.
Sure.
So, I'm sure there'll be discussions.
Desiree's got lots of free time. We'll just sign her up because I know she's
Yeah,
listening.
there you go.
Would this include an expansion of the library or is it going to be relatively the same size?
It would be a bigger library space, yes. Yeah. So it's the current space is a little bit cramped, and the city doesn't totally outright own the space. It's a weird.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So,
Do
Commissioner,
you have any idea what the current library floor space is?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Cody, do you know?
What is that building kind of like?
Oh, gosh, I just did this too. 20, I don't remember. But this is bigger. And the reason, and London hit exactly on the head, is the library space itself might be smaller, but the ability to have those classroom space, because the library's biggest concern right now, and London can speak to this as well, is that they don't have enough classroom space for like summer programs. There are other things coming in. They have plenty of library space, but they don't have classroom space. So this would give flexible classroom space. So the library itself might be smaller, but the classroom space, they can use 4 or 5 classrooms if they have Reptile Man there, or if anyone comes there to do something, they can show those things. So
And also, it would allow for growth of the actual library.
correct. Yeah, and if you incorporate the museum piece, it's just a natural flow of, you're in a library, you read a book, and holy crap, there's a piece of Yelm history right there. There's, a old railroad tie or something. It's just really cool to have that.
And the cool thing about the flex space is that, if the library needs it, they can book out 10 different rooms and have that. But when they're not using those, then other people can come in and use that space. If the community college wants to add more classes one semester, as kind of a trial program to see, if enough Yelm students are there to justify it, they can reserve all those classrooms for the semester. This is designed to be a very, very flexible space that will not only be good in and of itself, but it's intended to be part of our downtown redevelopment. So connecting in to the City Hall campus area, hopefully we can close off some of those alleys in the area and start activating them, have city events there, and things like that, have it be overflow space for different city celebrations or something like that. As part of our efforts to sort of pedestrianize and de-logging truckify downtown, then we really feel like the Education and Innovation Center is a compelling part of that plan. So yeah, we're super excited about it. And we hope to have more information soon as far as mock-ups and plans that we can show to the commission for some feedback. Next slide, please, Savannah. All right, last thing. The development code overhaul. This is a little bit more in the future. This isn't something that we are directly actively working on right now. But let me tell you a story. So the city's development code was created or adopted, I should say, in 1995. It is now the year 2022. It's been almost 30 years since our development code, and the world has changed immensely since that time. America Online was just getting started in 1995. I was 6 years old, and we still have the same development code that we had in 1995. There have obviously been some updates and changes to it, but it's aging. It's overworked. There's a lot of inconsistencies and contradictions, and it's difficult for us as a planning team to be able to administrate the code effectively when it's so outdated. So we're working to fix this. This is why we've been bringing you code updates every 3 months. But the job is too big for us. So we're looking at hiring a consultant to help in the next year or two. I don't have any information beyond that, but we're trying to get enough money budgeted to be able to move forward with this. So this overhaul would involve a total rewrite and introduction of numerous best practices planning concepts. So for instance, autonomous vehicles, they're coming. We're already seeing them on the roads in limited quantities. You know, sometimes you see all the little Google cars driving around with no drivers because they are being tested. We're going to see that a lot more over the next 20 years. Our code is completely unequipped to deal with that. We are not ready for it at all. We're not ready to deal with, you know, God forbid the next pandemic, you know, or anything like that. Further public health emergencies, the code's just, it doesn't have anything addressing emergencies like that. So we have this on our radar. The only thing you're going to be seeing on this probably for the next 1.5 to 2 years is just our quarterly development code updates. But hopefully in 2024, as we're also updating our comprehensive plan, we will be able to at the same time bring in a consultant to help us with the development code and update these two in tandem so that we have a really awesome, functional, and hopefully beautiful plan for the city moving forward and a way to enforce and implement that plan. Next slide, please, Savannah. All right, that's the end of my presentation, but do you have any questions about any of those projects?
Just have a comment that, yeah, moving the, I hate to see the old museum go down, but the pieces going into a new building, there's more and more people interacting. It's a great idea.
Absolutely. You know, the way to, I was a history major for a while, so permit me to go off on this for a moment. The way to really engage children and teens with history is to have it easily accessible and in places that matter to them and that make sense. So, you know, history books can, for a lot of people, I'm a history nerd, so I like history books, but for a lot of people, that isn't compelling for them. And so having the history easily accessible in the library, as staff, we feel like that'll help a lot more young people. God, I can't believe I just said that term. It'll help a lot more young people to engage with that history. Any other questions or comments?
One thing I'd like to say, barium Sarah, and London, you totally amazed me with your passion and that for the city planning, helping us understand what we're doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I would like to have seen Toby's presentation again.
I'd like to say one thing. Is that having gone through a lot of this over the years, and each of us have, well, I know that Carlos and John, we've done a lot of these things, but to see it all put in perspective
Yes,
as to how it all fits, I think is very, very helpful.
yes.
And particularly for the new folks that are coming on board and it's helpful for me to put it in perspective. The one thing that I really hold on to is that we're all doing this because of the Urban Growth Act. But the Urban Growth Act is to help us make sure that we don't end up like Phoenix that doesn't have enough water for the next 50,000 homes that are already approved. And they don't have the water. Or Austin, Texas, where you can't drive across the town or the city because it's built like a town. They don't have any planning that's kept up with the growth at all. So there's places that I go that I see that, and I ask them, don't you have a planning commission? Don't you have a review? And they look at me like I'm crazy because they don't have zoning. It's just not done. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, but it's to be able to be resilient over the long term. And so I'm very appreciative that you're all here to make this happen over time, because it's going to need to be updated 2023 to 2025, but it's going to need to be updated again as we go forward, because it's who knows what's going to come down the pipeline, self-driving cars and all this kind of stuff. It's here. I haven't tried it on my car yet because I'm too scared to do engage that function. Yeah, so.
We have no unfinished business, and like I said, we had a truly outstanding presentation on Planning 101. I believe we don't have any public hearings, subcommittee reports. And
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the parks. I know that Cody tell us what didn't bring everything, but there's a lot of changes going on, and in terms of Cochrane, you're going to see some major redo of the basins there, and I'd say the most important thing that we'll talk about today, maybe Cody, you could talk about it. That's some ideas, some different ideas on the Veterans Memorial.
Yeah, so just really briefly, because you guys are in a rush. The city park, as you know, the Veterans Memorial we have there got demolished 3 years ago now, I think it was. And I met with a group, Jerry was on that group to kind of redo that. It grew bigger than that park. I don't think that park is adequate to do a Veterans Memorial like I want to do. So we're talking with council and city administrator and the mayor about maybe getting a property located near the center of town that we'd be able to build just a Veterans Memorial at. So we're exploring a couple options. I can't tell you too much because we're still in talks with some of those property owners, but we want to make it bigger and better. And I think City Park is great. It's amazing. It's getting a little cluttered with everything we've done, which is awesome. But I think adding a Veterans Memorial might take away from the Veterans Memorial. And we already see kids climbing on the fitness court. I would hate to see like the veteran statues and stuff being climbed on because they're in a park area. So if we dedicated maybe a park directly just to a memorial, it would kind of deter that because people can know to go there and reflect and see things. So that's what we're looking at now. And I'm sure Jerry, you'll be in contact when we start to get a more concrete idea of what we're going to do. So that was a Veterans Memorial.
Yeah. That's the main thing. Then we've got in terms of the funding because of the 2 grants for the dog park. Dog park will happen, but it'll be later this year. But early next year. New dog park that's out down. Road. And there's a sign in front of it, because this is where the dog park's gonna be. Just to make sure that everything is between the federal grant and the state grant. There's a lot of different processes that we have to go through. So it'll start up later in the year and be done by early next year. And that's about it. The trail, any minute, we're gonna have the trail extended to the river. So we'll be able to go all the way to the river to an observation area. And then there's a grant that's been proposed and submitted for additional funds to go across the river. That's it's happening. It's happening.
I really like what's been done with the park. Every time when we leave church and we go by the park, my lady friend says, just look how much it is being used now.
Yes.
It is impressive. It is always people there, kids having fun.
Every
Thank you.
weekend, it is full with some type of festival, some type of event. It's, yeah, it's pretty good. And it takes Cody's, all of his folks to take care of this. So it really, they're doing a great job. Take care of it.
Johnny, everything on trees? I'm trying to.
No, I don't have anything on trees. Do you have anything on trees?
We'll resume meetings next month.
Okay.
Question. What are those beautiful trees that are on Second Avenue here? Just with the shape that they've been pruned so that they just have this beautiful shape. What kind of tree is that?
Oh, I'm not sure which ones we're looking at.
The ones on this side of the road, just across from, just across the street there.
That's the water tower.
I know.
Yeah.
Called tents,
right? Water tower.
I don't believe those are the hot ones. I'd have to look.
Let's check them out.
No, they're not.
No, they're
I don't know
not.
what they are, but they've got that natural structure you're talking about.
Yes,
I don't know.
they're beautiful.
Any other subcommittee reports? I think we've learned a lot at this meeting. Yeah, we've been over our half hour, but it has been such a great presentations. It didn't seem like that. But I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn today's meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank